Back and good morning, everyone. Let me start recording.
Morning, Lakshmi.
Good morning. Okay. Okay. So today let's talk about the file-based data import. So the file-based data import, as I was telling yesterday, the file-based data import is specific to any product other than the HCM family. If we are using HCM family, we have to use HCM data loader. Any product family apart from HCM data loader, we have to go with the file-based data import. So basically, either HCM data loader or file-based data import. Why do we use both of these things? Basically, we use both of these things to load the data in bulk or to load the data from external systems and also to load the data in automated way. Automated way means programmatically generate the file, send the file to the Fusion, and load the file into the Fusion applications. If you wanted to do that in an automated way, HR, we have to rely on HDL, and any other product, we have to rely on the file-based data import. Okay, so let's study about the file-based data import. What is the functionality of it, and how does it work? Okay, to start with, what Oracle has given for any other module apart from HCM, HR, basically if it is financials or supply chain management or sales cloud or projects, whatever model it is, what Oracle has done, Oracle has defined a predefined objects. Like in HCM data loader, how we have seen an object and how we have seen for an object, we have set of attributes. In that, in the HCM data loader, we have a provision to choose what attributes to send based on the keys, kind of keys, user keys, source keys, UID, and surrogate ID. Based on that, we could figure out how we can uniquely identify the object and how we can send the data. Coming to this Fusion file-based data import, what Oracle has done, Oracle has identified predefined objects for each and every product family. And what Oracle asks us, Oracle will define the mapping. And what Oracle asks us to refer that mapping file, refer that a template, and generate the file accordingly. Okay, so what Oracle usually do, if you go to the Oracle documentation, typically the way you have to start with the implementation of loading any object, any financial supply chain management or any module object into the Fusion application, basically we have to identify what object we are trying to load into the Fusion application. And we have to identify what product family is that object belongs to. Because it belongs to financials, sales, procurement, supply chain management. Once you identify if it belongs to the specific object, example supply chain management, then typically what you need to do based on the version what you are in, the file-based data import is the first component there. In that file-based data import, in that specific version, go to the respective version. Okay, in that, if you release 13, the content is a little bit different. Release 12, it is straightforward, but as anyways, as we are in release 12 instance, so release 13 instance, this is a release 12 structure. For release 13, it is updated structure. It will be coming up like this. Okay, so typically in release 13, as our instance itself is release 13, basically. So I am referring release 13. In that, typically what we need to do, we need to look at the file-based import data. Typically it comes under the implementation. So click on the implementation. In the implementation, typically you could able to find out now in the use. Yeah, import file-based data. If you click on import file-based data, you could go to the file-based data imports. Typically what it will say, file-based data import for Oracle Supply Chain Management Cloud. In this case, what it will do, it will Oracle supply chain management supports file data imports of all these modules, all these objects basically. So as I said, in the Fusion terminology, every object, every component is called as an object basically. So these are all the list of objects through which you can load the data basically. Okay, so example, if you look at any object, let us say product or price list, something like that, price list object, what typically it will do, it will give a template basically. It will give a template through which you can generate the data out of the generate the data, and once we have the data, we can load the data into the Fusion applications. Now if you see this template, okay, this template, if I open the template, typically in Excel template, if I open the Excel template, this Excel template basically contains list of, okay, let me look at the, instead of this one, let me look at the item one. Let me look at the item object. This item object, if you see, this item object has a template. Okay, I'm opening this template. Yep. So yep. So it is a template. If you open the item import template, the Excel template what Oracle has given, so this template will provide the list of objects that needs to be that is supported by the Oracle Fusion application to be loaded externally in the file format. That's the meaning of it basically. Okay, so if you open this one, this is the CSV, this is the Excel sheet which we have downloaded. In that Excel sheet, what typically happening, this first sheet will have instructions, and next sheet, each tab is actually each object. It means what typically happens for each an example for items interface, items division interface, items category interface, based on the functionality, based on that functionality what Oracle has given for item to import, it has all this list of tabs. Each tab refers to each object basically. Each tab refers to each object where you can fill the data. While filling the data, typically you have to work with your functional consultants. And whatever data we are seeing here is a dummy data. Basically, it doesn't have much meaning. So typically what we need to do, based on, we need to work with our functional consultant and work with what data has to be loaded here. And some of the data we have to you have to know, and some of the data may be referring to the data which is already available in the Fusion applications. Okay, so yeah, I will talk about that in a while. So each interface, each thing is an object. So typically, systematically, what happens technically is, once we have each object will have a control file. What is a control file? What happens once we fill the data in each of these tabs? Okay, once we fill the data, then what we need to do, we generate the data in the Fusion understandable format. In case of HCM data loader, we will generate the data in the Fusion understandable format by following the HDL syntax. But in this case, what Oracle will say, you no need to worry on that. What Oracle has given a provision, go to fill the data in each of these sheets. Okay, again, this is actually dummy data, it doesn't have much meaning. So go to this instruction sheet, and we have something called generate CSV file. If you generate the CSV file, then what internally happens is a macro will be running internally, and for each and every object, it will generate one CSV file. This object, it will generate one CSV file, and this will have one CSV file. All the CSV file will get generated in the Fusion naming convention, and those objects will get archived in a zip file. Okay, so If I go back again to the fundamentals, what we were talking in the inbound integrations. So typically what happens in HCM data loaded, basically in the source system, we generate the data, and once we generate the data, we zip the data into one file. Once file is got generated, we have to upload the file into the Fusion applications. In HCM data loader case, we are preparing these files and zipping it. Okay, in the case of a spreadsheet, a file-based data import, Oracle has given a provision that when you click on the generate CSV file, it automatically generates all the CSV files and zip into a single file. Example, I'm going to click on generate CSV file here. So what typically happening, a macro is running. It's not like something it is trying to connect to the Fusion application. It's not doing that. It's not connecting to Fusion applications. Instead, a macro is running in behind the scenes, and a CSV file is going to be generated for each and every object instance for every tab. Okay, so it will ask us to save the zip file in a specific location, whatever we want it to. Okay, and then it is going to ask me to choose a location where you want it to generate the data. So I'm okay, let me do here. I'm just creating one folder. In that, see, this zip file is going to be generated. I'm going to save the zip file. Typically, this zip file will have all the CSV files. Typically, what is happening now, CSV files are getting generated behind the scenes, and the CSV files will get zipped into one single file. Once we have the file, then what we need to do, we have to send that file to the cloud. That's the next step, basically. Once we send the file to see, it is going to generate CSV file. I'm going to every tab is one CSV file. Okay, the first CSV file got generated for the first tab, first object, and second CSV file get generated. So it will keep asking for to save each and every individual business object. Again, it's a dummy data. There's no guarantee this data will load into the system. So I'm generating the file. Maybe it has more number of tabs, so it will ask for us to save for more number of times. Typically what happens, once every CSV file will be generated and will get archived. Okay, while it is getting archived, if you see okay, let it finish. Yesterday we were talking about the flex fields. Does this FBDI support flex fields? Yes, it is. The descriptive flex fields data will get supported. Descriptive flex field data will be available for each and every object. And for the key flex fields also will be available for each object. Along with the business object, those key flex fields will be available. And along with the business object, the descriptive flex fields will be available. For extensible flex fields, that support has to be given for that respective business object. It means if Oracle doesn't provide a template for that, doesn't provide an object in that object for the extensible flex fields for that specific component, then that extensible flex field loading is not supported. How do we know that? I will show you that one. Yeah, I think it have an around 8 to 9 tabs. We have 3 more tabs to save.
Lakshmi, this is creating CSV file on local machine.
Yes.
Okay.
So we are not connecting to Oracle here. It's actually running a macro behind the scene and generating the CSV file. But in case of spreadsheet data loader, we are actually connecting to Oracle from the Excel sheet. That's a different scenario. CSV and zip file have been created. So if I go to the C drive again, and if I go to the item import, all the CSV files got created and got zipped into this file. If I extract this file, so this extract file will have all the CSV files that got created. Basically, it has all the CSV files, and the CSV files got generated and zipped into this folder typically. So that's what happened. Once we have the zip file ready, then what we need to do, we need to move this zip file to the Fusion applications. That's what we need to do. Now, coming back to this Excel sheet again. The one I have here. If you see the Excel sheet, this is actually all the data in this specific items object. This items object will have a base table basically. Each object specific to one base table and interface table. So if you go to this, end of this one, see that these are all the attributes, which are actually the descriptive flex fields. So if you fill these attributes, we have 15 text attributes and 15 data attributes and 30 number attributes. So 30 text attributes and 15 number attributes and 15 data attributes. So what we can need to do, if we fill these attributes, there's nothing but fill in the descriptive flex fields. Okay, it's nothing but fill in the descriptive flex fields. Once you fill this descriptive flex fields, then these flex fields will automatically get loaded into the Fusion applications. Similarly, if you go and look at if any extensible flex fields are there, or if there are any key flex fields. Typically, what is a key flex field? Key flex field nothing but a combination of different segments, and where that will have a code combination ID. So if you know the code combination ID, that code combination ID has to be given. Example of item number is a code combination ID example. If you say, then you have to give the code combination ID here, which will refer to that key flex field segment values. How do we populate the key flex field segment values? We can typically it will be supported through rapid implementation, or we can upload the value sets through an Excel sheet. We have various ways to do that. Okay, so key flex field and descriptive flex fields is supported in FBDI, which will come along with that respective business object. But coming to the extensible flex fields is a concept where actually those extensible flex fields reside in a different table. Okay, so for that, if you go to the different objects like this, so there is something called EFF here. If you see that EFF nothing but extensible flex fields. For item interface, if there are any extensible flex fields, if this business object is supported along with the Fusion applications, then you can load this, see that attribute code and attributes as per the EFF flex fields. EFF flex fields are also be supported. Okay, it's entirely based on how your business object is being defined. It is a business object and what tables it is trying to hit here. If this table is having the EFF table, it means EFF interface table, it means that these EFF flex fields are supported. If you see that this EFF is specific to item revision, and this EFF is specific to item supplier, like that. Okay, only then only these EFFs are supported to load along with this item object. Okay, and if that specific interface tables or the specific objects are not supported, then you cannot load that EFF using the FBDI. That is entirely, you can go to that respective object and identify expect a component. Sorry, this component will have many objects internally. So yeah, if that has AFF extensible flex field support, then you can use that. Okay. Now, coming back to this Excel sheet again, typically what exactly happens once we create the file? Now, coming to the creation of the file, how do we create the file? So does everyone go, example, let us say we are items, we are maintaining items in a different system, and you want to bring the items information every night into the Fusion applications. So we know to generate the item data, we have to go here and generate this, we have to fill these sheets and generate the CSV file. So if we need to load the data every day, do we need to generate the CSV file on daily basis? No, we should not do that. We don't need to click on generate CSV file every night. That's not the way. Okay. Typically, what we need to do, we have to generate these CSV files. Okay. So technically what we need to do, we have to generate these CSV files on nightly basis, whatever it is. These CSV files, whatever format it is, we have to generate the CSV file in this specific format. Along with that naming convention, we have to generate this multiple CSV files and combine together into one zip file, and then send the zip file automatically to the Fusion application and then load it to the base tables. That's what we need to do. Okay, so typically if it is a functional person, typically the functional person typically go and generate CSV file and load it. But if it is something has to be automated, then it is our duty to generate the CSV, create the CSV files itself, and zip it together. To create the CSV files, typically there you need to make sure how the data should look like, how the data should come up. In that, we have to follow some specific guidelines, basically. Okay. Now, to generate, if you want to generate it programmatically, what happens here is you can refer one thing, you can work with the consultant to get some sample data, and you can also refer the control files. Example, if you wanted to generate the items import, example, we have something called item import file example, then typically, is it items? Yeah, the same one. Yeah. If you click on this control file will say that, this control file will say that basically, what is a control file before that? Let me save this file first. So the internal mechanism is once CSV file is generated, once we send the CSV file to the Fusion application, an SQL loader program will kick off. That SQL program, for any SQL loader program, what are the typical inputs? SQL loader program, the typical inputs is number one, we have to give a data file. Number two, we have to give the control file. Data file and control file is good enough to run the SQL loader command. And the SQL loader command, what happened to this one? So SQL loader command, typically what will do, it will actually refer the control file. Okay, it is a control file. It will refer the control file and it look at the data file. Okay, so it is the control file. So what typically it is doing, it is trying to insert load data into the table, EZP systems item interface table. That's what it is doing. Okay, and this whatever columns we are generating in our data file, that column should follow all these specific conventions. If any of the specific conventions are not being followed, then automatically that program will fail. So that is very important that we have to generate the data as per the specifications. So it is the place where actually we need to work with our functional consultant and bring the data. Okay, so if you observe that some places This actually, these functions is being called when we trigger the SQL loader program to load this specific data object, okay, by referring to the data file. This will be triggered in the Fusion. We won't do anything outside of the Fusion, but it is a control file. What Oracle will give, this control file will help us how to create the data in the CSV file. Okay, so work with the functional consultant and get some sample data along with this, and also look at this control file and write your PL/SQL procedure or any programming language specific procedures and generate the data in the CSV file format. Okay, now let us talk about few fundamentals around that. How to generate the file? We have to follow some standards, like how in HDL, how we have seen the syntax. Typically, we have to follow a few things. Okay, so each interface table is represented by a spreadsheet. Okay, each tab basically. Each interface field is represented by a worksheet column with a header in the first row. And each column header contains a bubble help text or help comments that will include details about the column, such as expected data type, length, in some cases, other instruction text. So it will have this column. Basically, this explanation is nothing but this control file explanation. Whatever the technical component is here, those things get simplified for the business users into the comments, basically. That's as simple as such. Okay. And columns are formatted to match the target field data type to eliminate data entry address. Basically, whenever you enter the data in this Excel sheet, that data, if it's a date format, the date format will get converted automatically to the Fusion specific format if you enter the data in the Excel sheet. If you generate the data from programmatically to CSV file, then again you have to refer to the control file, and we have to understand how it is looking for, and based on that you have to generate the data. Okay, and yeah, the worksheet columns are in the order that the control file process the data file, right? So whatever order we have in this order, the same order the control file will have the columns. So if you are filling this Excel sheet, if you're filling data in the Excel sheet, you should not delete any column, you should not remove any column, but you can hide the column, and you should not change the naming of any of these column names. So name should be matched, and format should be matched, and you cannot delete anything. You can hide columns for your sake. Okay, another thing I have observed sometimes is in some sheets, what happens is these columns won't be visible. This attribute 7, 8, 9, 10, DFF flex fields won't be visible. In those cases, typically what happens is in the spreadsheet, by default, those columns will be hidden. Okay, example, after this, maybe they will hide some columns. Okay, maybe what you need to refer, maybe after KK, okay, after KL, you are getting KU, means some things got hidden. Basically, sometimes DFF columns will be hidden. You have to make sure those DFF columns are unhidden and get the data filled accordingly. Okay, that's something I have seen in some components. Okay, and some key things to load the data. As I said, unused columns can be hidden, but they cannot be recorded, reordered, or deleted. External data must conform to the data types accepted by the control file. And most importantly, data column should be in this YYYMMDD format. That is very important. And if there are any amount column values, can't have a separator other than the period. Basically, that is very important. We cannot have the commas. We cannot have commas like that. You can have if there are decimals, then you can say dot. And if there are negative values, you have to proceed with negative sign. Okay, and column values that require whole numbers include data validation to allow whole numbers only. And for columns that require internal ID values, refer to the bubble help text for additional guidance. Basically, if you can refer to the bubble text, or you can refer to the control file, and based on that, you can generate the data out of the Fusion, out of the Excel sheet or programmatical way. So these things are very important while generating the data. Once you generate the data either programmatically or programmatically using control file, or you generate the data through the spreadsheet. End of the day, what you are going to do, end of the day, you will be creating the Excel spreadsheets and zipping it and creating the zip file. That's what you are going to do end of the day, right? Once you get the zip file, then what we need to do, we have to send it to the cloud. Okay, so for every data object, while sending to the cloud, basically there are some sequence of steps basically. Okay, so those instructions will be what process should be run at the Fusion application to accept this data. Those instructions will be given in that respective template. Okay, so once we have the data, once we generate the CSV data, then what we need to do, you have to load that, then what you need to do, you have to load that data into the Fusion applications. Where do you load the data in the, where do you, first of all, where do you keep the zip file into the Fusion application? First of all, you have to keep the zip file into the Fusion applications. Once you kept the zip file in the Fusion application, then you have to run the import process. So you have to run the import process so that it will import into the interface tables, and then you have to run the load process to load the data into the base tables. So what data has to, what steps has to be done, it will be given in each and every specific spreadsheet. Okay, so in our case, we got the zip file. Now I need to load this zip file into the Universal Content Manager. So how do you do that? Okay, now before loading the data into the Fusion applications, what you need to know, if you wanted to load this item, okay, the account is ICM item import. It is the account. Okay, so whatever user is trying to load that file into the Fusion application, that user should have access to this account. How do we define that access basically? So let me go here. Let me close this for now. I'm going here. I log in as some SCM IMPL user. Let me log out as a SCM IMPL user, some implementation user. Let me log in as a different user. I will log in as financial implementation user. Okay, so okay. Once we have that, typically what we need to do, the next step is to next step is to send the zip file to the cloud. Now I am into the cloud now, and I am sending the zip file to the cloud. So the uploading the file into this cloud, basically specifically if it is not HCM data loader, if it is HCM data loader, we go to My Workforce, and then if we go to My Workforce and Data Exchange. But in this case, it is different. Here actually, to load the data into the cloud, we have to go to File, Import and Export task. So if you go here and go to More, and we have something called File, Import and Export process basically. If you go to File, Import and Export process, in this import and export process, typically you can upload the file whatever you're looking for. Okay, again, as if it is HCM data loader, we go to My Workforce and load it there. But in this anything apart from HCM data loader, any other product family apart from HR should refer FBDI. For file-based data import, to import the data, it is a way to do. Okay, the other way as well, when we talk about automated way of doing it, I will let you know. Typically, we are uploading the file into the cloud. In other words, we are uploading the file into the Universal Content Manager. That can also be called as Web Center content. So what happens, when I go to upload the file here, it will automatically place the file into the Universal Content Manager, UCM, or Web Center content. Okay, I click on browse, and I can choose my file. So it is item import file, and this is my zip file. Now this zip file, we have to, in the template file, if you see that the UCM account should be associated to SCM IT import. Okay, and whatever user has logged in, that user should have access to the SCM item import in this list. If the user don't have access to the SCM item import, then it means that this user cannot upload the file into that account. Account nothing but it's a package. Basically, internally we are trying to upload the file into that specific package. It's a specific package. So whenever a program will be invoked, only the programs available in that package will be get invoked, and that data files will be referred. That's the meaning of it. So we have to make sure we have SCM item import is available. We have SCM something here, and we don't have SCM item import account available here. It means that this person doesn't have access to the SCM item import account. Okay, it makes sense because it's a supply chain management file, and we logged in as a financial implementation user. Maybe whatever financial administrator job role we have, that financial job role doesn't have access to this item import account. Basically, how do we know that? How do we assign that user account access to this person? Typically, we need to assign that specific role to this user. So for every upload, we have a role. Okay, so I will just show you what that role is, and then I will log in as the same IMPL and upload the file. I'm going to security console again, and we have something called upload. All the roles will start with upload data for item, in our case item import. So this is the role. So this role is not assigned to that specific, to that financial administrator job role, whatever the financial IMP user has. If that role is inherited in that specific job role, whatever financial implementation user. Example, if I go to the financial implementation user, okay, this user has many job roles. Okay, maybe some financial administrator job role, maybe something will be there. So financial analyst or financial admin, some job role. For that job role, basically what we need to do, we need to edit the job role and assign that upload data import duty role to that. Then automatically this person will get the access, basically. Okay, so that's the way to do. If you wanted to give access, you can create your own job role and inherit that role and assign to that person whatever way you wanted to do. Okay, once we have, then only that person will have the user account. Okay, now I'm going with the user who has access to that user account. Typically, supply chain.
Can you give the access to this user, and let's see from this user can we upload?
I mean, I can give it, but it's not right way. Basically, it's a financial implementation user. So I mean, I can show you how to give it, but I'm not going to assign it. So I will just quickly show you. Open one role. Example, this person has, and again, we should not modify the custom job role, create job role. We have to create the custom job role by doing the deep copy or shallow copy. So example, financial analyst, some role is assigned to that specific user. We know that. So example, if I open this role, and this role is assigned to that user, so I can go here and edit the role. And in the role hierarchy, so what I will do, I will add a role. What is that? Upload data for item. So if we add this role, okay, I'm not adding it. If we add this role, then typically this person, anyone with this role can access that user account. Okay, so that's the way to do. Now I'm going to log out as this user and log in as a SCM supply chain management implementation user, typically who has access to all those roles, because that's Oracle given administrator. So if I go to this SCM IMPL user, and then if again I go to the file import, so file import and export. Now I can upload the file into the Fusion applications. Again, I'm doing everything manually. Okay, when we talk about automations, I will talk about how we can automate all this stuff. I'm going to browse again and get in the zip file. Now I have to refer it to SCM item import. So they have many SCM items here. So here I need to get SCM item import. So save and close. It means this file got imported to the cloud. Okay. So we can also verify whether this is really imported into the universal content manager. So how we can do, copy this one, whatever URL you get from the Fusion applications, copy that one and go here and just say IDC, IDS. One second. We have something called, I think this is the one typically Ravi shares with you. If I go to the environment landing page, in the environment landing page, we have something called auxiliary links. And every client may not have this. Basically, client will be given only the direct URL. And in that, we have something called Oracle Universal Content Manager. If you click on that, yeah, basically it is this one, CS IDC PLG. I will go back here, get the URL, and copy the CS IDC PLG. Then automatically will be logged into the Universal Content Manager. So as you already logged in as a HCM IMPL, basically it is logging in automatically. If not, it will ask for enter the username and password again. Okay. So typically here it is nothing but Web Center content. Web Center content will just host all your documents, whatever data, whatever documents coming from external systems will be hosted in the Web Center content till we clean it up, till we purge it up. Okay. So we have this data here. You can just click on search, then automatically you could see what are all the files I got available in our system. So if you see, this is the one I just loaded. Basically, if I click on the info, it will give the timestamp 2:16 a.m. Basically, mine is a different time zone. So at this 2:16 a.m., we just imported the file, and it is the real location of the file. Basically, it is in this server, in the CS groups, FA Fusion import export, SCM item import documents. It is a real location in the Fusion application server, and it is a native file. If you click on this file again, you can get the access to the file. You can download it basically, and it is an account SCM ITM import, and it is a security group. It will play a prominent role when I talk about automations through web services. It will have this one, and the author is SCM IMPL. Okay, it means it is confirmed that it is loaded into the Universal Content Manager. Now it doesn't make much sense, but if you do automations and if you automatically sends files from your legacy system to the Fusion applications, and you want to verify that your file has been sent to the Fusion applications, then typically you have to come here and verify basically. Okay, so I'm coming back to the
Lakshmi, till what time that in this directory the file will be available? So
by default we set the settings of 30 days, but you can increase that, and you can also run a purge program for every 15 days. We have many ways to clean it up and retain it. Actually, it's actually profile option.
So there is no kind of thing, right? Put it into some RK folder, something like that once it is processed.
No, we don't have.
The file will be
the SAS model, at least we don't have.
Okay, the file will be remains there until we delete or until we purge.
Until we we don't have delete process, we have only purge process.
There is an option, right? At the end, if you see right corner.
I mean, if you want to do it manually, you can always do it.
Yeah, correct.
I'm talking about automated way. Example, you want to clean up your UCM file if anything is older than 15 days, something like that. Then you have something called purge process where you can purge these files which is older than 15 days, like that. We have a ESS job for that.
Okay. And the account, there is an account, right? SCM item import. So we added one role. Can we see somewhere the details? Particular account is related to this role, something like that.
Okay, this account. Okay, so you are saying that what role has access to this one? Okay.
Exactly. Yes. Which is or which is inherited to this particular account or something.
Okay. I understand what you're saying. So we should get it from that role definition table, basically. So in the security class, I have shared a few queries with you, and in that query, actually, those queries actually pulls what data is there at the role definition level. There you can figure out what does that role contains, basically.
So can we get the details from the OER, or OER will give only the account table?
Yeah. We can get the OER tables as well. Basically, we need to little more to get this one. We have to go to data security policies table levels as well. Basically, they are called application policy manager tables. Yeah, I didn't mention this table actually in my document, but I will try to share something on that. But you can always get to Fusion Apps OER and get it.
Okay, OER only account information. We can see. I think so we can see the role as well.
Yes. It will actually see. It's nothing but it's nothing but data access basically to this account basically. And we want a role name which will have this data access. That's what you need basically. So yeah, that's possible to that security tables. Right. So I'm going back. So we got the file imported here. Once we got the file imported, what we need to do? Once we get the file imported, typically we need to run the import and load jobs here. Okay. So yeah, every typically here little bit different than what we have in HCM data loader. Once we have the file here, typically we need to load that file into the interface table first, and then we have to trigger the program which will take the data from the interface table to the base tables. Okay. So now what I will do, I will go to a schedule process again. So tools, schedule process. Again, this data, I didn't verify this data. This data may have all the wrong, so what actually happens here is, so if I open some file, maybe we're referring some item number which is never existing in the system. So item number may be existing, maybe something like source system code basically should be available in the application before we create this one. If it's not available, it may fail. So I didn't refer any of this data. Whatever dummy data we have it, I'm just taking it and creating it, and it might have many references to many other columns. So very good chances that this file will fail. But what I am trying to show here, I'm just showing here how typically the process happens. Okay. So once we have the file, typically what we need to do, we have to load that file into the interface tables. Okay. For that, we have some program called load file. So load interface file to import basically. So what typically it will do, it transfers data files from a user specified locations to the interface tables. That's what it will do basically. Okay. So in this, while transferring data to the interface tables, it will evaluate. It is nothing but it will run the control file. So typically this program will run. This load data into this program will run. Okay. And if this validation is failed, example, if any of this validation is failed, example, to get the stock planning method, basically it is decoding this stock planning method. If it is null, it is replacing with char 0. If it is not null, it is doing something. So there are many things are going on here. Many validations are going on here. If any validation is failed, then automatically this program will fail, because this load program will fail, right? So as our data is dummy data, there are very good chances it will get failed. Okay, so import file. So typically in import process, what we are trying to import here, we are trying to import the item here. So let's go and search for import item or item import. Item import. So basically what happening here, we are loading the interface file for import. So what it is trying to do, it is actually to the data files from specific location to the interface tables. Which interface tables we are trying to load? We are trying to load in the item import interface tables. What are the item import interface tables? These are the interface tables. We are actually trying to load data into these interface tables. Okay. So if data is successful, it will go into the interface tables. If data is not successful, any SQL loader program, what it will do? It will try to run the program. It will try to insert data into the interface tables. If SQL loader program is failed by some reason, typically we will delete the data from the interface tables. That is a typical way to do, right? So, and what data file we have to refer here? We have to get it. Whatever is imported into the, we just imported this one, yes, 216, 10 minutes back. So this file we can choose. So what typically it will do, it will try to take this data file, run this SQL loader command, and load it into the interface tables. Okay. Before that, one more step happens. Basically, a zip file will come. So this zip file will be actually will be extracted, and then each data file go to stage table.
So Lakshmi, if the consumption is in the sequence way, because the worksheet will go in that sequence, or
yes.
So if I miss any one of the sequence, I will not zip it. How it works?
So yeah, if the example in this case, we have some 10-15 different components, and you didn't give these 3 things, and you have given remaining things. That sequence will still work, provided there is no references to these objects anywhere or something like that. So if the no references are there and we are just referring the independent data just like that, then you can always take out that components out of the sequence and send it. Even real time, there is not necessary that you will be sending all these files anytime. Maybe you will be sending a couple of files based on that respective transactions. Yes, we can do that.
I think one file got created for each and every tab, I think.
Yes, yeah, that's what I was saying, right? For each and this sheet is actually every object, a tab will be there.
Suppose I don't want to give data for a particular tab. So then the file will be created or not?
You are talking about CSV in the Excel sheet, or you are talking about
in the Excel sheet we have multiple tabs.
Right.
Suppose just I wanted to give only 2 or 3 tabs of data. I don't want to give it to others.
Yeah.
In that case, the files will be created, or only 3 files will be created. When
it will create all the files, but those files will have a zero data, don't have any data.
Okay.
Yeah, macro has not that much intelligence yet. So yeah, each data will go to the stage table, and file will be removed from the cache, from cache memory. So removed from the cache memory means it will still retain in UCM basically, but it won't be available in the cache memory. Cache memory means the memory between the UCM and the Fusion application. It will be removed. If it is removed means typically that won't come up in this list anymore. That's the meaning of it. It will be removed, and then it will trigger the load program into interface tables. Okay, so for any reason, if it fails, then if anything, example, this zip file will have 15 components. If any component fails, then what happens? It auto deletes data from the stage tables. Data from the stage tables. Sorry, not stage, interface tables. Interface tables, and will be lost. So what to do next in this case? Again, correct the files in your local server and upload it back to the Fusion UCM. Okay, that's what we need to do. Okay, if it loads, if it fails in this step itself, you have to do it again. If it's successful, if this process is successful, loading is successful, and then if load is successful, then what typically we need to do? All the data will retain. If the above process is successful, it means data is available in the interface table. In interface table, and if that is available in the interface table, typically what you need to do, you have to trigger the import into base table process. It's a different process, actually, different ESS. Different ESS job. Okay, then what it will do, it will refer the data in the interface table. It will refer the data in the interface table and load into the base table. For any reason, if any failure happens, in this case, what happens? It loads whatever data is success. Okay, it loads whatever data is success, and then we have a provision to correct it in the spreadsheets. So what the mean spreadsheets is actually, it is actually ADFDI, ADF Desktop Integrator, which is available for each and every object. Okay, if an item got failed, then if you go to the item screen and if you go to the main as item import error file, then it will automatically open up a spreadsheet along with the list of failures. In that case, you can go there and correct the spreadsheet. That is option 1, or else you can again generate the file and load it. That's 2 ways of doing it. Okay, so in this case, we are in this process now. Okay, so whatever I was telling, this is the process I was showing actually. So we have created the import file. We have based on the file import template, we have created the data file. We upload to the Universal Content Manager. We are going to load in the interface table. If any errors are there, then typically it load process purchase the interface table, again correct the data file, again load it to Universal Content Manager and do it. If no errors, then again come here, import data into the application table using import job. If there are any errors, if errors is yes, then you have that data, whatever data we can correct the data in the interface table using the ADFDS spreadsheet. When this can happen, when data is not purged. Typically, if we have scheduled any job which will purge the data on daily basis, something like that, then the data won't be available in interface table too. So if data is not purged, you can correct the data in interface table using ADFDS spreadsheet. Where do you get the ADFDS spreadsheet? That will be available in the specific object screen. If it is items, if you go to the item screen, then actually you can get the get the errored out records in the spreadsheet, and you can correct it. If data is purged or you don't want to correct in the ADFDS spreadsheet, again what you can do, whatever data got errored out, for the data, again prepare a data file and upload Universal Content Manager and follow everything successfully. If no errors, then data will be successfully uploaded to product tables. It is a typical procedure of doing it. So now where we are in now, we are into the load into interface table, and we are going to see if any errors are going to happen. Okay. So I am going to submit it now. So I am submitting it. Okay, and again, I am saying there are pretty chances of getting error because we didn't refer data at all. We just got whatever dummy data we have and we just zipped it. So if you see here, the load transfer file for import, the first step, it is triggering a subprocess called transfer file. Transfer file is successful. So what it's actually doing, it's actually transferring data. The first step is to transfer the data. So it is actually getting the file and keeping the file into the destination file. This is the location it is keeping the file. It means bring the data, bring the file from a universal content manager, keep it in this folder. Internally, it also create in a dummy table, stays table kind of stuff. Okay, and then transfer file is successful. Then what next? So transfer is successful, and then it is triggering the multiple load file to interface table. It means we have actually these many objects, so those many sub-process will get triggered. It will keep loading the file for each load to interface. So some of the objects got successfully loaded. Yeah, most of them successfully loaded, and one object we have a warning. Basically, if we have a warning, means it's actually the main process will also fail, because if data, they should be very clean. Okay, so what is that? So we have a log file and the bad file, because SQL loader will have those two, bad file and log file. And we don't have any discard file here. So I'm opening the bad file. So what is the bad data? So it is a bad data. So it's actually the functionality. Maybe the log file may say more why it got warning. So it is saying that table, it is the interface table, as it is, as our control file is saying that. Okay, I don't know what it is. I think I have closed the control file. So if you see that SQL loader is actually saying append mode, so it is trying to append the data into it is trying to append the data into this table in the append mode, and we have actually 256 rows, and this is the command. This is the load command. It's getting executed. So 8 rows are not loaded due to the errors, due to data errors. So those 8 rows rejected invalid number. So this invalid number is there. So record 2 rejected, error on table, invalid number. So somewhere I gave invalid number in my file. So I don't know where I had given invalid number, because as I said, we didn't see that. That's the result is coming up. So typically what we need to do, we have to correct that. And we have to refer where actually we are giving invalid number, and we have to correct it. As we got the errors here, typically it won't load the remaining data. Basically, that is the reason the main parent program might get failed. See that? The load interface file for import, this got errored out. So if you go and see here, this parent program will actually has 15 files. It means 14 CSV files and 1 log file. So if you click on the log file, it will say that it will say the whole status of what it is doing. So it is processing each file, and when it is processing this file, sorry, I think when it is processing the EGP systems interface type interface, it's got the error. So yeah, basically when any child process get errored out or warning, it will give warning, then automatically it will delete the data from interface tables because we got some errors, and all the data from the interface tables will get deleted based on the load request ID. And as I was showing here, if any errors are coming up, load process purges the interface table, and again we have to create data in the data file based on whatever bad file we have. Based on this data, we have to correct the data again, and again we have to create the data file, and again load it here. Okay, let us say we don't have any errors. Then typically what you need to do, that data will be the interface tables. Once you have data in interface table, you have to run the import job to import data into the base tables. So what typically we need to do, you have to go again and schedule process, something called item import process. Basically item import process. So this item import process, typically what happens, we have to provide the batch ID, whatever batch ID. Example, when we're creating the Excel sheet, typically we give the batch ID. So which batch ID we wanted to import the data. Basically, once we have the data is not available in interface table, it won't work. But typically, once we import interface table, we have to submit the batch ID. We have to submit the program with the batch ID. Then the data will be inserted automatically into the base tables. So that is the
You told that in the two ways we can make a correction, right? Can I show that like it's not a correction? Where are the two steps we can make correction?
Okay. So example, in this case, let us say if interface level it fails, then there's no other way. We have to correct in data file only. Okay, there's no other way. Example, once you run this that item import program, and once we run the item import program, if we have any errors, we have two ways. One, create the data file again and send it, or you can correct it in the ADFDA spreadsheet. So how do you correct the ADFDA spreadsheet? So let me go to the manage items. So items will be, let me go here. So I have something. So if it is items, it's specific to that business object. You have to go to that specific business object screen, and then you have to look for that specific business object. Okay. So example of item import got failed. Then typically what we need to do, you have to go to the item screen. So manage items. One second, I'm just checking the screen name. So define items, not sure. Let me get the screen name. I'm referring a documentation here. Let me get that. I'm not more a functional, so I'm trying to refer where the item screen will be. I didn't find. Manage items. Does anyone from SEM background here? No, not this one. I just wanted to go to the item screen. Yeah, I don't know actually. So yeah, I don't know that screen, basically which screen where we can see the items. It's actually coming up the lookups basically. So if you go to the item screen, example, let me show you like this. Example, if you go to order management, some screen, okay, not item screen, some order management, some screen. So every screen will have that functionality where, I mean, most of the screens will have the functionality, I assume. So we can go to that specific screen, the task list. Inventory management, maybe. So maybe if I go to some screen, let us say if I try to load some data specific inventory management, most of the screens might have that Excel, like manage pending transactions, or item quantities. Okay, so I will figure out that screen. I didn't remember basically which screen, from which screen actually we have to go to that specific screen, and we need to get the, we have to go to that specific screen to get the ADFDS spreadsheet. It's not like something we have to go to a different screen. This specific spreadsheet will be available on that specific component, actually, specific object screen. Because I'm not the functional expertise, so I didn't remember exactly what that screen name is, but maybe somewhere it is. I'll try to figure it out and let you know.
Lakshmi?
Yeah.
Is that ADFDA spreadsheet is going to refer that interface table what?
Yes, absolutely. It will refer the interface table and get based on the batch ID. We know the batch ID, right? Based on batch ID, whatever parameters it will take, you can see what are available in the spreadsheet interface table that to be corrected.
Lakshmi, do you have the correct role to create the items, to manage items?
I don't know.
Can you go to navigation?
Okay.
No, I meant go. If you can go to the navigator.
Navigator, okay.
You don't have product management. Under product management.
Oh, we have the items. Okay.
So, but you don't have it.
Okay. Let me try once with the financial implementation user. Yeah, if it's not having, then it's not having. So. So product management. Yeah, I don't have that as well.
Yeah, you don't have.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, do you have any other, maybe general accounting journals? One example, maybe I can show you here. If I go to journals, basically if I can say correct import errors, see that this kind of thing will be there. This kind of thing will be there in the items screen as well. That's what I'm saying. If you say correct import errors, a spreadsheet will open, ADFDI will open, and where actually you can get the errors imported. Okay, let me get the password. MX. So yeah, so similarly, if you go to item screen, basically there you can get the items got errored out, where you have provision to get them corrected on the spreadsheet. Basically, here you can search based on which, maybe in case of item will come batch ID, you have to go and search it, and it will so search failed. Enter a general source. So I have to enter a general source. I don't know again. See if there are any errors. If there are any errors, you cannot modify. No. Yeah, if there are any errors based on the search result, what you can do, you can search it and you can do the correction here and you can do the upload. That's why we need to do that basically. So whatever step I'm telling here, this ADFDI, you have to go to item screen. If it is item, go to item screen and search for the item based on this whatever criteria we have, and get the data and go ahead and correct it. That's what it is. That's how we can do. Or else go to the file again and do the correction and load it back to the application. Okay. So few things we have to know. Remember, let me walk through this screen now. Whenever you get the data, basically make sure that you should have thorough understanding between the source system and destination system. Basically, why I'm saying that source system and destination system. So example, if you are trying to, again, if I'm trying to load this object data, some of the data, as I was saying, may be referring to the existing data, maybe asset class or asset type, activity type. Maybe this data has already defined in the Fusion application, and you have to refer that data here while entering it. Okay, and we have to identify what columns we need to fill and how that column is available in the destination system. You should have thorough knowledge on the source and destination. That understanding, we have to sit together with the functional consultant and get that understanding how the data is there in the source system and destination system. Based on that, you have to extract the data from the source system and transform it as per the Fusion specific format basically, and then in that transformation and cleansing happens in the source data preparation. You have to prepare the source data. Second step, you can skip it because it's specific to PaaS model, and here you can clean the source data and remove duplicate and orphans records, and you can save data in text file or CSV file or XML files. You have both the provision. Okay, so you can do that. Let me, in the perform data comparison, you have to make sure what data is available in the application. That is very essential, and it's also good if you know the understanding of what tables data is going to, what business object it is going to. If you have this ER relation diagram, then step 1 will become easier to prepare the source data. Okay, and while preparing the source data, as I said, you can prepare in text file or XML file. So in the text file, basically whatever data Oracle has given, like in Excel template, basically that is actually text file or CSV file. Basically, CSV file will support one-to-many or one-to-many-to-one relationship kind of objects, because that's the most simplified version of the data. That is what Excel sheet will provide. But if you want to go with a more complicated data load, like one-to-many-to-many kind of relationship, in that case we have to go with XML files, and XML files, we have to prepare XML files and loading it. The loading of XML files is a little bit different. I will talk about it when we talk about automations. And once you prepare the data in text file or XML file, typically, and one more thing you have to make sure while preparing the source data, sometimes we might example, let us say it is a source file, and here we're referring to opportunity revenue product group ID. What is a product group ID? That product group ID may be something we have to bring from the Fusion applications, which is not available in the source system. These kind of columns will be available. It's not like not as intelligent as HCM data loader. Okay, if the source file has to referring some IDs which are typically available in the Fusion applications only, in that case you have to make sure those IDs are available from the Fusion applications. Either you have to get that file as a file data on nightly basis or whatever into the source system to refer this IDs in while preparing the source file, or you have to use web services to bring this reference number dynamically based on the name, something like that. And you have to create this file as per the need. Similarly, some places you will be using the lookups. Example, you might be using the lookups in your screen. In that example, if it is a lookup, this is a lookup code. That lookup code is available in the Fusion applications. You have to get that data from the Fusion applications to prepare the source file. So what I want to say is there is dependencies on the Fusion applications to prepare some kind of data. You have to remember that. So in that case, you have to bring the data from the Fusion applications to prepare the source file. Once that file got prepared, then you can import the data into the Fusion applications. Again, importing and loading is again whatever we have seen just now, and those activities will happen in the Fusion application side. And based on the import error or a load error, we will have provision to create a data file or correct it in the ADF desktop integrator. Okay, so that's the whole process. So next thing I will talk about automation. The same thing, how we can automatically load it in the Fusion applications, basically, which is more interesting. I'll try to start this topic in the next session, and our next session will be on your Monday morning. Tomorrow I'm going out, so I'm not taking session tomorrow. And Monday morning we'll be starting with the automations of whatever we spoke till now about inbound integrations. We will talk about how to automate those stuff using the web services, and that web services knowledge will be used for outbound integrations as well, and in many other places. Okay, so yeah, if you have any questions, you can ask me, else we can drop off.
Lakshmi, from UCM it goes to staging tables or directly to interface tables?
So when we run that first, when we run this load data to interface table, basically, so once the load data to interface table is successful, it goes into the interface table directly.
So no staging tables.
Yeah, staging tables won't be there. Basically, as I was mentioning in my steps, basically, the first program, end of the day, it will go to the interface tables. But typically, internally, what happens here is the zip file would extract, it will go to the stage table or dummy table, and then it will start the trigger to load programs into the interface tables. So there is no stage table concept. You can ignore that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So each worksheet will have its own control file, right?
Yes. Yes. Each control is one control file. You can always get it from the object here, control files.
So which means Oracle Fusion is supporting SQL Loader.
Yes.
So in the PaaS model, maybe we can create our own control file, own import scripts.
Correct. We can create our own import. We can write our own SQL API, PL/SQL APIs to load the data.
Okay.
Yeah, we have that provision. As we have access to database, we can do that.
Okay, Lakshmi.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, by today I think we are done with HDL and FBDI, and next class we'll talk about automations. Okay. Okay.
Okay, Lakshmi, you have a good weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Yeah. You. Bye.
Yeah. Bye. Okay. Any more questions? Okay, then thank you everyone and have a good weekend.